So today, Apple released the new iPad Pro models that were announced on October 30th. So 8 days later instead of 7 days later. Come on, Apple, what happened to consistency? But anyways, I see a lot of people on YouTube that have gotten these new devices day one, are excitingly unboxing them and all that stuff. And unfortunately, that's not us guys, because our money's being spent elsewhere. If only we had some more money, I could just buy an iPad Pro. But anyways, I do already have an iPad Mini 4. It works, kind of. It's kind of starting to die. But anyways, I wanted to go ahead today, give you a quick overview of kind of what's new on the new iPad Pro, just so you know. That rhyme was absolutely intended, by the way, so I'll leave now. Of course, the most publicized. I don't know. I can't pronounce anything today. But the most publicized. Oh, I actually said it right that time. The most publicized thing about the new iPad Pro is the screen. They've gotten rid of the home button, which I think is a nice move. They have added a lot of the gesture-based navigation present in the iPhone 10 to all of the iPads in iOS 12, which is a little interesting. And I don't even really use the home button on my iPad anymore. It's just much easier to do the gestures. So I think getting rid of it was fine. And they've also shrunken down a lot of the other bezels. As a result of that, you get this much larger screen that extends almost edge to edge. I was thinking before this came out that a full edge to edge screen on the iPad might be a bit excessive. So this was good. This is good. But anyways, it's a much larger screen. 11 inches on the old 10.5 inch model and 12.9 inches on the old 12.9 inches model. Now, why they didn't just make that 13 inches, I have no idea. But, I mean, whatever. It's a smaller form factor. And then these iPads also have the new liquid retina display introduced in the iPhone XR, which is basically just an LCD that's slightly more color accurate than the old LCDs they used to use. Now, I don't really know why that deserves its own separate name. I mean, I guess marketing. Yeah, I forgot about that. Just take something that's really not that big and market it as huge. But anyways, the real thing here that to get excited about is not necessarily that it's a liquid retina display, because trust me, there's not really any difference between a retina display and a liquid retina display. They have pretty much the exact same pixel count, and the pixel density is exactly the same, which is really why I want to see OLED iPads at some point, but we'll get to that later. Anyways, they look pretty darn good, these displays, even though I haven't actually seen them in person. I just kind of like the size. It's a nice size. You get a nice step up there. Of course, with the loss of the home button, you also lose Touch ID, and it's being replaced by Face ID, which is, while Touch ID is kind of a cooler concept, I mean, fingerprint scanners are more high-tech spy type things than face scanners, so we lose that coolness for the 8-year-olds that have the iPads, I guess. But Face ID is technically, and you really can't argue with this, easier touching it versus looking at it. Both ridiculously simple ways to unlock an iPad, but you can now do Face ID, so that's pretty cool, which also means you get the full true depth camera in the iPad, which we'll get to that later, but it's pretty sweet. And that also is made to work in any angle as you move the iPad around, unlike the iPhone XS and XR and 10 Face ID, which only work in the portrait orientation. So that's kind of nice, I guess. Another thing Apple is really known for is for creating ridiculously powerful and power efficient chips for their iOS devices specifically to run on. And so, of course, when you have a brand new iPad Pro, hence the name Pro, you're going to get one of the most ridiculously powerful mobile chips ever, along with the Neural Engine, which I still fail to see what the heck a Neural Engine even does, but apparently it's important. But anyways, this A12X Bionic, I almost called it the A1210 Bionic because I've been used to looking at iPhone 10 and pronouncing it that way. The A12X Bionic is going to be crazy powerful. It can run full desktop applications like Photoshop, and so I really want to see if at some point this means Apple might bring Final Cut Pro to the iPad, or at least a mobile version of Final Cut Pro that you could switch between the iPad and computer, like, fingers crossed, like, that would be awesome. That would make me go buy this new iPad Pro if I could do some Final Cut Pro stuff on the go. I mean, anyways, very, very powerful chip. So this iPad, I think, is definitely going to be one that lasts a while in terms of iOS updates and support, because this appears to be a pretty big leap in processing power from what I can tell. Oh, yet another thing to absolutely love about this machine, because let's be honest, there's way too many things to love about this new iPad Pro, is that this thing has USB-C, and that's not just for power. It'd be cool enough if that's just for power. It basically works just like a desktop USB-C interface. You can connect to cameras to access the camera roll on the camera. You can connect to an external display. You can even charge your freaking iPhone using the iPad like you would plug it into a computer. This is really a step in the right direction, I think, if Apple wants to keep pushing this new iPad as the iPad Pro in general as a computer replacement. This is a step in the right direction. But just from an iPad standpoint, it's incredible the opportunity that this opens up just to have a fully functioning USB-C port on the iPad. I love this. This is just one of the many reasons that this is definitely a device that I want to get my hands on at some point, even though I probably won't, just because it's not exactly where my money is at the moment. Now, there's no change to the outer camera, which is a little disappointing, but it's not really a deal breaker because most people don't use the outer camera on the iPad much of anyway, and this is already a pretty good camera on the outer outside of the iPad. It's able to shoot 4K video in 60 frames per second, 12 megapixel photos, all that fun stuff. The real cool thing with the cameras is that with the Face ID comes the true depth camera on the iPad, and that'll allow for portrait mode and selfies, and emoji, all that fun stuff. Although it's a little weird that you can only do portrait mode selfies on the iPad Pro because they did not update the outer camera. But yeah, I still think that it's excellent to be getting the true depth camera, if that's what they're calling it, on the iPad, or here iPad Pro, but just having it on the iPad in general, I think it's very awesome. The other thing I think is hilarious is, like, immediately when the first MacBook got Touch ID, the iPhones got Face ID, and as soon as yet another MacBook has gotten Touch ID, meaning it's almost expanded to all the MacBooks, then they just got rid of Touch ID on the iPad. Poor MacBooks. Although I really want to see a true depth camera on the MacBook at some point. Maybe the next MacBook Pro will have a true depth camera. That's an idea, Apple. Work with that. But anyways, I'm getting super off topic here. True depth camera. That's what you're getting. It's pretty sweet. A quick look at the technical specifications on Apple's website reveals that some other features from the iPad Pro are obviously carrying over, like the stereo sound with 4 separate speakers. But what's pretty shocking about this diagram is, take a look at it. Alright, everything looks normal. Of course, instead of Lightning, you have the USB-C connector. But wasn't there another connector of some sort that was kind of on the opposite side from the power button? Didn't they call that like a headphone jack or something? Yeah, that's right. Apple just completely removed the headphone jack from the new iPad Pro without telling anyone. I mean, I guess they kind of learned their lesson after making a big deal out of it at the iPhone 7 event, and I know a lot of people personally know a lot of people who skipped out on the iPhone 7 only because of the lack of headphone jack. So with all the excitement built up for this iPad Pro, it was kind of probably smarter on Apple's part to leave out the fact that there's no headphone jack, but I'm just letting that go out there to anybody that's looking to buy this device. I definitely still recommend it. It's still a fantastic device, but I'm just warning you, there's no headphone jack. So, and then here's the other thing: since it's got USB-C, there's no using your Lightning headphones either. Do you see the problem here? You've either got to have wireless earbuds or go fork over some cash for a USB-C to headphone jack converter, which luckily is a thing. But if you do use any kind of headphones with the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack thingamajigger, or you use Apple Lightning earbuds, you can't use either on this new iPad, which is a terrible design flaw in my opinion. They probably completely overlooked that. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker. It's just something to be aware of before you pick up this device. Now I'll just talk about some of the new accessories that you're going to get to use if you do upgrade to this new iPad Pro. These are not included in the box, but you'll have the ability to use them. First one is the new Apple Pencil, which the old Apple Pencil charged by plugging into the Lightning Jack, which is a really dumb solution that resulted in a lot of broken pencils because you just had a pencil hanging off the side. This one actually has magnetic wireless charging. It just clips onto the top of the iPad and charges through the iPad, clipped onto the top, and that magnet's apparently pretty strong, so you can carry it around without the pencil falling off, which is actually a brilliant design solution in and of itself, even if the old pencil hadn't existed, and the old pencil did exist, so that makes this like 10 times more brilliant. So yeah, and then there's also a little touch sensor on the front, so you can double tap to do things like switch between writing tools and stuff like that, which would be really useful for people that do like artwork on their iPad Pro and things like that. But the thing is, this is a pretty steep price tag. Obviously, it's going to be more expensive than the last pencil because it does have the magnetic wireless charging instead of wired charging, which is always more expensive, plus the touch sensor. So this thing is like $130, which I think is nuts for a tablet. I personally wouldn't pay that much. Or a stylus, sorry, I said tablet. This isn't a tablet, this is a stylus. Anyways, if you're really into artwork and stuff like that, and that's the kind of stuff you'll be doing on your iPad, then maybe $130 is worth it for you. For someone like me who would probably buy it just to try it out and say, hey, that looks cool, that's kind of steep of a price tag. Now, one of my biggest complaints with the old smart keyboard was that it did not offer back protection to the iPad. It only covered the front screen of the iPad. And that's where this new and improved keyboard comes in. This is the Smart Keyboard Folio, which is an interesting name. But anyways, it's specifically designed for this new iPad Pro, and it clips on magnetically to the back. And it uses that smart connector as well, so no having to worry about Bluetooth and batteries and things like that. But it offers both front and back case protection to your iPad. Now, how much protection it provides, I don't know. It doesn't look like that much, and until people do some tests, I won't really be convinced this is that protective. But just the fact it covers the whole iPad, it's a much better design than the old smart keyboard was. So this is, I think, around $180, which, believe it or not, I think this $180 keyboard is much more worth its price tag than the $130 stylus. Sorry, I said it. But anyways, yeah, it's a really nice keyboard. Much better concept than the old one. So that's something else you could get with your new iPad Pro. So that was basically it. I just wanted to kind of sum up all the new features in the new iPad Pro and kind of let you guys know what you're going to get if you upgraded or perhaps were buying an iPad for the first time and wanted it to be this new iPad Pro. So that's basically everything you're going to get, and that wasn't present in the previous iPad Pro, obviously. So be sure to let me know down in the comments below, are you going to be getting this new iPad Pro or are you not? What exactly are your more in-depth thoughts on it? And maybe you just don't have the money, but if you had the money, you would buy it. That's the situation I'm in. I would love to have this device. I just don't have the money specifically for it right now. So maybe if you're in that situation, you let me know. I don't know. I just kind of like to engage with you guys in the comments about these topics. So anything you want to tell me about the new iPad Pro, I'll be here to listen. And be sure to leave a thumbs up if you want to see more tech-related videos in the future. And I'll be out of here. Bye-bye.